this is a rather tranquil rural setting, part of the Belgian Ardennes, very close to the German border. It's now October, so we have these wonderful colours of autumn. This is the location of a massacre. A massacre, one of 3 massacres I intend to look at in the coming however long it takes me to do, that took place during the Battle of the Bulge. But there's something about this massacre that took place here which is particularly brutal. On the 16th of December 1944, the Nazis had their absolute last fling of the dice, the Battle of the Bulge. The objective of this was to break through here in the Ardennes and then to swing north towards Antwerp and cut off the British 21st Army Group, which Hitler seemed to think would put the United Kingdom out of the war, and then he would be able to turn around and deal with the Soviets. A particularly ridiculous idea, no matter how much you think of it. Anyway, that was the delusions that he had. Now, in September of 1944, when Hitler came up with this idea, there was something like 100 possibly tanks in this entire sector, a complete total. I mean, it's difficult to define what a tank was because often they pulled them out the line, such as what happened at Arnhem, for example, to feign that they were broken when they actually weren't, and things of this nature. But just to put this in context, there were around 1,800 armoured fighting vehicles on the 16th of December 1944. Now, this is noted, this battle for the tanks that attacked, but this terrain is not suitable. Now, the place we're at the moment is not particularly heavily forested, but in some places, I mean, I drove here yesterday and was driving through forested areas. It absolutely does not lend itself to tank warfare. But you're thinking, didn't they break through the Ardennes in 1940? Yes, that's true, but against a much different opposition and using tanks which were much lighter. The difference in technology over only 4.5 years is immense. So initially, now the Americans were up to 20 kilometers within Germany, and to the northeast of here is the Schneeefeld, which high ground, but behind that you've got something called Lotion Gap, which is low ground. The Americans could effectively have retreated back from the border, but they didn't want to. The reason for this being that they'd captured some of the Westphal fortifications, so why give them up? And I suppose that is understandable. Now, when the attack came through, there was no real breakthrough here in the north. Now you may look and say, oh, look at that bulge, isn't it big? But consider how far they were supposed to go and how far they actually got. On the 16th of December, they were met with opposition. Now, the Americans were taken prisoner on the Schneeefeld I think it's the largest surrender of American troops in the Western theatre in the Second World War. Now, some American troops did manage to get away, and some of them were in segregated units, all black units, except for the officers, of course, who were white. And some of these people ended up where I am right now. Now, in the case of the men I'm going to talk about, have a quick look at their backgrounds, because they were all from the south, and so therefore they weren't people who would have experienced the temperatures that were here. And not only that, because of the way things had gone, they had arrived in Normandy, and I think they actually had to spend 4 days waiting just to land the boat they were on because of the bad weather. Then taken across France, large and open trucks. Then they get here, they're in prepared positions in some cases. So I think, oh, that doesn't seem so bad. But in any case, they wouldn't have been used to the temperatures that they met here. Now, it was to drop to -20, but that was later. That was from like 25th of December. The temperature on the 16th, despite other things which I've read, but it was between -1 and +4. There was a snow covering on the ground, but the ground itself was still soft. And so that meant that these massive amount of vehicles which were trying to come through along roads like this, coming along 3 abreast where possible, but where they came off the road, they got stuck, and they got stuck very easily because it was mud under it. The ground wasn't frozen. It didn't freeze really hard until the 25th. So when there were clear skies, now the fog and the mist did prevent air reconnaissance, which added to the surprise. But the fact was that they got surprised, but they could not advance very far. Anyway, I think that is really important for the events of what happened here at this place here, where there was this particularly brutal massacre. Now I'm going to jump ahead to the massacre, and then we're going to look at what happened before the massacre. So the 11 soldiers, African Americans, were murdered at this location, in this field where we now are. This is the monument to them, which is quite recent. It was put up, I think it was 2005. Anyway, we'll see that from one of the signs here. And they were now, when the Malmedy massacre took place, for example, what the SS did, which wasn't very far from here, they gathered the Americans in a field and just shot them, mowed them down. These people were tortured before they were killed. Now, the level of the torture, this is something I don't really like to talk about when I do videos, because had their fingers cut off, which is usually a sign that their rings were being stolen and they couldn't get them off. Another thing was said about their being bayoneted in the eyes. Now, it is possible that didn't happen as such. It was the injuries to the eyes were caused by birds, and there's other instances of that where the birds who will find carcasses and the eyes relatively easy to get at, so then they'll go for the eye. So I don't quite know, but in any case, they were treated very badly. Now, why did they do this brutality? The only thing I can suggest is that because of the racism they were brought up with, and the fact that these Americans had held them up and caused them no end of problems, particularly because they were artillerymen, I think that may have been part of the frustration in not achieving the breakthrough that they thought they would achieve. And now you may argue back, well, hang on, this is only the 17th of September. The battle hadn't been on for only about less than 48 hours when this actually happened, and that is an argument. In fact, less than 36 hours, or around 36 hours, when this actually happened. Now, there is what happened. The Americans, I'm going to read you the sign. Actually, there's a sign down here. I'll read it to you, but adding my own bits of information into it, so it'll be sort of a bit of an extension on what the sign says. Now, the sign is here. It's written in 4 languages, and so here we go. Unfortunately, English is at upper height. Now I'll point the camera away so you can actually see something. On the 16th of December, when the German counter-offensive started, the 333rd Field Artillery Battalion, which was attached to the 106th Infantry Division, the Golden Lion, supporting the 590th Artillery Battalion, was in firing position east of the Our River. Now, the Our River is to a large extent the border between Belgium and Germany and Luxembourg in Germany. On the 17th of December, between 08:30 and 09:30, the soldiers received the order to leave towards Schöneberg, alternative position for the battalion. In the process, they came under attack by small arms and fire and mortar fire. According to the operational report, the commanding officer ordered the destruction of the equipment and to retreat on foot. 27 soldiers and 1 doctor succeeded in reaching the objective. Now, Schöneberg is in Germany. It had been liberated, but it's close on the border, and it was captured by the Germans during the Battle of the Bulge. 11 Afro Americans were separated from the rest of the group, and after spending several hours in the woods of eastern Belgium, they arrived around 1600 at the farm of Matthias Lange. They were exhausted, starving and wet. They rested and ate the food offered by Maria Lange. Now, Mr. Lange, Matthias Lange, he was the mayor, if that's the right word for such a small place like this. And what is really important now is a little bit of the background of this area. This area here, Eupen-Malmedy, was part of Germany before the First World War. As a result of the Treaty of Versailles, it went to Belgium. But as you'll see, even from the what's written here, that this is a German-speaking area. Everybody who's spoken to me has spoken to me first in German. So since I've been in this area, this is really important to understand. Now, this was annexed to the Third Reich in after the occupation of Belgium, 1940. So, and there were people who considered themselves to be German and might have sympathized with the Nazis. But as in Germany, where the majority of people did not sympathize with the Nazis, but had to go along with it because of the fear, a similar situation existed here. And bearing that in mind, I'll take you now back to the sign. Whilst they were eating, so they were offered something to food, and the Langers refused to take any money from them. They had some coins from Belgium and France, and they offered them, but they said, the Langers said they'd probably need it where they were going. How they communicated, I don't know. It has been said that Matthias Lange spoke some English, but I don't know. They'd never seen a black person as well before in their lives, so that also must have been quite unusual for them. So while the eating SS arrived, these American soldiers, hands up, were lined up in front of the house and then forced to sit on the wet ground. When Matthias Lange suggested to the SS the shelter of his shed, one answered, "They'll warm up when they run in front of our vehicle." A short time later, the SS went back to their vehicle and had the Americans run in front of them and took them to a trail about 70 meters from the road. There, the 11 soldiers were savagely massacred. So that massacre took place here. Now, what we know is that within the vehicle, which was a Volkswagen Schwimm, I can't remember what it's called now. It's an amphibious vehicle for 4 people. Schwimm something, I've forgotten it. And so there was 4 in there, but from the descriptions, I get the impression there were actually more people. Now, what happened clearly was that somebody betrayed the Langers. You see 11 black people, they certainly weren't Germans, also, I mean, the uniforms were different and everything, so that's how they were betrayed by somebody who was glad to see the Nazis back. So the killings took place more or less as I described earlier. here it says, because of the ongoing fighting and the heavy snowfall, their bodies were discovered and taken in February 1945 by the US infantry. Autopsies revealed the victims' agony. Several of them had multiple wounds, including head wounds and bullet and bayonet wounds. The fighting continued in the area. On the 26th of December 1944, an anti-aircraft battery having been set up near the house, Herman, the 12-year-old son, his brother Leo, 9, his two sisters, 6 months and 17 years old, were wounded by a bomb dropped from a plane flying at low altitude. For the 50th anniversary of the Battle of the Bulge, Herman Lange and some of his relatives erected a simple stone cross at the edge of the field where the 11 Afro American soldiers were massacred. In 2002, a non-profit organisation was created in order to acquire the land where the massacre was perpetrated, to integrate the cross into a new memorial dedicated not only to the 11 men of the 333rd FAB, Field Artillery Battalion, but also for all the Afro Americans who participated in the turmoil of World War II. And there's a little dedication. This memorial, symbol of our gratitude, is to this day and to the best of our knowledge the only monument dedicated to Afro Americans who fought in Europe during the Second World War. May 2004. And here we have the names of the victims. I have information on them, which I might do a longer video on. Now, they were buried in two places because as far as the United States was concerned, it offered the possibility people were buried wherever they were, then they were put into one central cemetery, which is the one called Henri Chapelle, but if the families wanted, they could send them back home for them. And as you can see, some of them here were sent back. So Curtis Adams, so he's here, his body's here in Belgium, in Henri Chapelle. Maggie Bradley was taken back home to Fort Gibson, Oklahoma. George Davis and Thomas Forte are both here, and Robert Green, Highland Park Cemetery, Cleveland, Ohio. Jim Leatherwood is in Pontotoc, Mississippi. Nathaniel Moss and G.W. Morton are in here, Henri Chapelle Cemetery. W.M. Pritchett is in Wilcox, Alabama, and James Stewart and Dew Turner are in Henri Chapelle Cemetery. So there we have the details also of the unit, and the others is in other languages. So I'll take you now up to the monument itself, which is quite attractive, quite simple. Let ourselves in through here. Oops. And I think I'll come to here. It's a seat for people to actually look at. So, remembering the bravery of the Lange family, especially of Herman, who erected the initial monument on the 11th of September 1994. Now, why weren't the Langes punished? Well, the Langes had a problem when the Americans arrived because they were hiding two people who were trying to avoid the draft. They were people who could have been, so they must have come to the Langes a day earlier, on the 16th, when this was captured by the Germans. And then in this area there were lots of people in this position. Now, I've done videos on Oscar de la Wange, and one of the people I quote at length in the video I did related to the Warsaw Uprising is somebody who came from this region, whilst his brother was in the resistance and obviously hiding, but he was conscripted, and that was how he ended up in German army in the Warsaw Uprising. And I'll give a link to that below. In fact, I did a separate video with quotes of his from the Warsaw Uprising. So I don't think I've published it at the time of me doing this. I don't think I've actually published that. Anyway, let's come up here. We'll start off with the main one. I'll say this in German because you can see here it's been done in the local language. Hier wurden am 17. Dezember 1944 11 US-Soldaten von der SS erschossen. And that's not written in English. Here on the 17th December 1944, 11 soldiers of the 11 United States soldiers were shot by the SS, and there we have their names again. We have a dedication here. Time goes by, but don't let go the sorrow and the memory. We will never forget you. Maria Courtois et sa famille. Can't read the last word, sorry. But you see here also in German as well, so as well written down. So bringing across here for this, which is on the 17th of December 1944, 11 African American soldiers of the 333rd Field Artillery Battalion were captured and massacred here by the SS. This site is dedicated to all black soldiers of World War II. So we've got that written in German. If I come over here, it's the same in French, and it's the same in Dutch. The Dutch-speaking area is not far from here either. So, the Delaware Valley chapter of the Veterans of the Battle of the Bulge, Philadelphia, USA, paid tribute to the Wereth 11. Right, so, as you no doubt know, the Americans, well, British as well, spent a long time looking for those the murderers of the great escapers, and the Americans spent a lot of time and effort trying to bring those responsible for the Malmedy murders, which took place not far from here, to account. Now, as far as this massacre was concerned, they also did investigate it, but after 2 years they came to the conclusion that that was done by somebody unknown, or that was the official line, but that is not true. And in a separate video I shall tell you who was behind it. And now let's have a little bit of a walk up here just to give you a little bit more flavour of what it looks like around here. There, I think there's a film on this incident. I haven't seen it, but anyway, I think the house that they went to is this white one, which is up here, I think. And there is a documentary that's been done on another YouTube channel where they actually enter the house. I actually saw this also on French television. Sorry, it was Belgian television, but it was in French. And I'll leave links to that actually, because that's quite valid to what I'm talking about here. They also brought a Afro American veteran, 87 years old, back here. But the table that these American soldiers ate at was also shown in the video. So there we go. Now I've also planned to go to Malmedy if I can, but I'll see. It really isn't very far from here. Sorry, in the vehicle. It'd take about an hour on a bicycle. I did a Battle of the Bulge tour in January 2017, so it's nearly 9 years ago now, and I went to a number of places around La Roche-en-Ardenne and Bastogne. So you can see that this is at the northern area. One very important thing about the fighting here is the Battle for St. Vith, which effectively stopped the advance. I mean, the whole idea was pretty absurd. But then again, if you think like Hitler, it was a throw of the dice, which was utter desperation. It's it really totally absurd. I mean, there was maybe one chance in 1,000. But you know, for the people who took part in the battle, the people who were killed, it didn't bother him. It wasn't his life. So, this is the hamlet. And that is the Ardennes. So I hope you found this interesting. I'll try and do a documentary video on it as well, if I can. But for the moment, thanks very much for watching. Hope you found this interesting. I travel around a lot like this, visit lots of places of this nature. It's always possible that when I do a video just walking and talking like this, I might make mistakes which I don't realise until afterwards. So hopefully there aren't any mistakes in the documentary type videos. Well, I've got to write a script and I can check everything, but here I'm largely going off memory and as you can see, the location where this actually took place. So that's it. Thanks for being with me. You know, I'm gonna have to get back in my vehicle because I've got a problem with the lights, and it's sort of coming on and off. There's a connector which isn't working and I don't really want to be out too late. I was filming yesterday in a place in Germany and related to an early concentration camp, a place called Osthofen, and anyway, my lights, as I left Saint-Vite, they went off. Oh dear. So I don't want to be caught out in the open anywhere. So I'm forced to. I mean, I could spend the night here, wouldn't be a problem. But anyway, good. So if you're interested in this type of thing, then please subscribe. I upload every day now at 2000 hours my time. That is Central European time, and so if that's the sort of thing interests you, then subscribe. And then you know what I'm actually doing. But now every single day. But longer videos like this usually appear on a Friday. This mightn't appear on a Friday. I don't know when it's going to appear yet. But it's usually on a Friday that things like this actually go up. Thanks. All the best. And bye for now.